listening to Flop Culture. This is a podcast all about pop culture flops and why they flop. An interrogation of sorts, if you will. My name is Fionnuala. I'm your host. I hope you're really well. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Without further ado, let's get into the news. Andrew Scott has just been cast in Knives Out 3. He is joining Josh O'Connor, who was recently seen in Challengers. I will be talking about that on the Patreon. If not this week, definitely next week. I'm the last person on planet Earth to see it, and I have things to say. Josh O'Connor's going to be in it. We're also going to see Kaylee Spaney in it, who was in Priscilla. She was Priscilla in Priscilla. And obviously Daniel Craig will be reprising his role as Benoit Blanc. I've actually never seen any of the Knives Out films. Obviously, Knives Out 1, Knives Out. The second one was Glass Onion, haven't seen that. This third one, which is coming out in 2025, it's called Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. And I don't like Andrew having a huge time at the minute. A huge 2 years I think he's gearing up for. Like, I think, obviously he's already huge, but like, I think we're getting into Paul Mescal, Barry Keoghan levels of huge now, because obviously Ripley, hugely successful on Netflix. I am going to be honest, I started it, don't know if I'll go back to it. If I should, please let me know. It's at flopculture_pod on social media. I'm willing to be corrected on that. But he's also going to be in a Netflix film with Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx at the end of this year in November 2024. It's called Back in Action. It's the rom-com that Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx have been shooting since time in memoriam. And that's coming out a little bit later this year on the streamer. Glenn Close is also in that. Huge year for Mr. Andrew Scott, so good for him. I'm glad to see him scaling these heights. It's what he deserves. As someone who just finished Fleabag and has changed for good, as they say in Wicked, I think. I don't know. I've never seen Wicked either. And on the topic of cinema, let's get in to this week's flop. Let's be frank for a second, and I can obviously only speak for myself, but a girl growing up in the 90s and the noughties, she wasn't blessed with the best media diet, shall we say. Real-life women were being crucified for going out and partying, while fictional women were forced to chase happy ever afters, predominantly with men. But then you've someone like Melanie who comes along. Melanie in Sweet Home Alabama, played brilliantly by Reese Witherspoon. Melanie is a slightly more complex character, a woman with a successful career who does not want to compromise on-set career by becoming a trophy wife. She is a complex character set against a complex backdrop that is, to put it extremely mildly, politically questionable. But at 9 years old, all of that context flies over your head. None of it matters because you're watching two people fall back in love with each other. And it's perfect. Joining me to discuss Sweet Home Alabama is freelance writer Edaein O'Connell. Enjoy. Edaein O'Connell, thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture. How are you?
I'm good, Fionnuala. How are you? Thanks for having me.
So good. I'm so excited. Tell the people what you picked this week.
So I have picked the best film of all time, Sweet Home Alabama.
The 2002 classic.
It's a classic. It's better than Titanic. It's better than Avatar. It's better than every film that's ever been made.
I mean, I would be inclined to agree as someone who owned this film on DVD as a child. This is a very formative film for me, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on whatever way you look at it. What are your memories of it?
So I can't remember the first time I watched it, but I'm a bit like you. I had it on DVD and I had a portable DVD player.
Yeah. Okay, I wasn't that rich. Okay.
No, I was
okay, upper class. Okay, money bags.
It was a little white one, and I think I got it from Santa.
Okay.
When you're like, really, I shouldn't have been watching these films. Really, when you actually look into it, some of the content was a little bit too old for you.
I think it was 12s, but like, I mean, a racy 12.
We knew enough. I watched Podge and Raj.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
So
I knew
ready.
enough. But I had it. Yeah, I had it on DVD, and I specifically remember like going to Dublin in the car with Mum and Dad, and this was before the motorway, so it would take like 10 hours to get to Dublin from Kerry. And I remember watching it many a time in the back seat.
Okay.
And then I remember like my brother, who's like 7 years older than me, watching it with me too.
Okay.
And him turning around and be like, this is a pile of shite. And that kind of informed me then as I went up. You know, like when you grow up and if you have older siblings and you want to be cool. And I was kind of ashamed of my love for like these romantic comedies.
Yeah.
Now I'm very much proud of the fact that I am a real romantic comedy hit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are you still a rom-com head now?
Hugely. I think I'm more now, but the problem with rom-coms these days is that the quality has gone down a lot, I think.
We've talked about that previously on the podcast. I think and I think the conclusion we came to was the recession was to blame. The recession ruined rom-coms.
Recession, yeah, because it was around the last good rom-com that I can remember, it is around 2008, is 27 Dresses.
Banger.
And then after that, then I do not remember going. It kind of went. It went in kind of knocked up style, that kind of comedy, really Seth Rogen, that kind of vibe. That kind of came in. Wasn't really vibing with them. I went to the classics, and now I know they said last summer. Was that last summer? No,
I was going to Anyone But You. I was about to ask you what you think of that. I haven't seen it yet. I will eventually. Some year.
It's not as good as TikTok made out.
Yeah.
Sydney Sweeney, I saw someone make a very good point on Instagram the last day that I hadn't seen before, and it's what I've been thinking, but I was afraid to say it. She mumbles. She needs to go to elocution lessons.
Enunciate, okay. And she doesn't enunciate like our good gal Reese Witherspoon does.
No. Now, what's the main guy again?
Josh Lucas.
Yeah, but the guy in Anyone But You.
In Capybara Man. What the hell is his name? Glenn Powell. Sorry, Glenn Powell. Okay.
He's fab.
Yeah.
Leading man, 100%.
Oh yeah, he's had that stitched up since
Set It Up on Netflix.
And Set It Up, yeah, of course. Sorry.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Didn't like it. I think it's a bit too unbelievable. Like some of the things that happen in that film, I'm like, I don't get it. They're in Australia. I don't really understand why they're in Australia. It just all seems very disjointed. And then like there's points of it where like he's jumping off cliffs into the water, or they're like jumping into like the Sydney Harbour, and I'm like, that would never happen. And the thing that I've been thinking about this, why the films of say the noughties are better than the ones now. There's something about the noughties romantic comedies that are a bit more believable.
Okay.
Like obviously some bits are far-fetched, you know. Like they live in these amazing apartments and they're like 25. And there's some things that obviously would not happen. Like in 27 Dresses, for instance, really, would you be a bridesmaid for 27 people? Who knows? But I just find like Sweet Home Alabama, I'm like, that is kind of, there's a realism to it a little bit. Whereas the newer romantic comedies, I just think, I don't know what, they're just trying to do it for clout, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So then for anyone who's not familiar or who hasn't watched in a very long time, what is Sweet Home Alabama about?
So, Sweet Home Alabama is about Reese Witherspoon's character, Melanie Carmichael.
Not a real name, as we learn.
And Jake Perry, played by Josh Lucas. They are childhood sweethearts. And as time moves on, I think they become teenagers. You find out later in the film, she got pregnant. They got married. He's flaming at the wedding, gets sick in her. I think he gets sick in her, or he doesn't show up to the reception. And she flees Alabama and ends up in New York. We meet her 7 years later. She is a fashion designer. New on the scene, lives in this unbelievable apartment, is going to be the next big thing, and is going out with Patrick Dempsey's character.
Yes.
Who is the mayor's son.
Yeah.
They get engaged, but lo and behold, she's married, has never told this man that she's married. She goes back to Alabama and chaos ensues as she meets her childhood sweetheart, tries to get him to divorce her. He's not signing the papers. She reconnects with her family, friends of hers, and I suppose it's all about her connection to home and her connection to her past love. Yeah,
in some ways it is a bit too real, because it is like, you know, the country girl goes back, like we all have, like, you know what I mean? We've all had our grand big city ambitions, but we're all just big cultures at heart, you know what I mean? We can both relate as Munster people, represent not all are all Munster people cultures. Let us know. Hello at hello@culture@gmail.com. But it is also like, you know, there's a lot of like class issues and the kind of shame that comes with coming from a place that like you have these kind of preconceived notions about. I really bought into like the romance element of it when I was younger. I think there's some elements to it now that like kind of jar a bit more, like the whole, like it is just so deep south, like very, lot of political jokes about, you know, the Patrick Dempsey's character being the mayor's son, like they're Democrats, and like, you know, the minute Reese goes home, I'm like, all of you would have voted for Trump. I know, like, you say whatever you want to me now, all of you would have voted for Trump.
They're all Trump supporters down there.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, I suppose the things you gloss over as as like a child and a teenager watching it, but now when you look back at it, like when I was watching it last night, it deals with a lot of like big stuff. Like they talk about miscarriage in it, homosexuality. Like
I had completely forgotten that storyline
Bobby
about
Ray.
her outing Bobby Ray, and to watch it, but I was like,
It's awful.
And then they just kind of never deal with it again, and he's like fine about it.
and everyone is totally okay.
I was like,
and
Bobby Ray, like what? Stand up to her.
And she in a bar. She does it in a bar. She is actually such an unlikable romantic lead.
That's what I was just about to ask you. Like Melanie, the character, not very likable, but like Reese is maybe the best part about this film? Question mark? Discuss.
Yeah, I think she is fantastic in this film.
Yeah.
And a little bit of trivia, it was Charlize Theron was originally pitched as that main character. My opinion of that is that she's too tall for that part. I think she would just...
Do you know what?
It
now
just
you say
wouldn't look right.
No, she is too tall.
She's too tall. She's like proper, like...
But like Reese
South African model.
has, and she talked about like why she did, like felt like a very personal role for her because it reminded her of her experience moving from Nashville to Los Angeles. Like you're kind of watching a parallel of Reese's life, whereas like I don't think I would have gotten that from Shirley. Like this, Reese was born for this role, especially where Reese was at this point in her career, like just off the back of Legally Blonde. She was really coming into this like imperial phase of I am the rom-com queen, which I think she has now kind of tried to shake off, unfortunately, and position herself as like high drama producer person. And I'm like, no, like let's just go back to you're good at the comedy. Why don't we do that? I don't think Shirley's would have worked in this role.
And when you look at, because that character Melanie, forgot her. It's Melanie Smooter. It's Smooter. And then she lies for anyone who hasn't watched it. Because she's kind of embarrassed where she came from. She calls herself Melanie Carmichael, and it does sound better for like being a designer. Like who's going to buy a top from like Melanie Smooter? I definitely wouldn't. But she's so good because there's times when she puts on that kind of real kind of Yankee accent, as they call it in the film. She's so good at that, and she's so unlikable. And then she kind of, it's very tactical and quite faint the way she does it. She goes back into that southern charm.
That. Yeah, I loved hearing that.
And you don't even notice that she's doing it. Yeah. She's just back. It's like when she starts talking to the people from home, she goes back into that sort of person. And look, I'm from Kerry. Like I'm not from the proper sticks, but I do notice sometimes when I go down home to Kerry, the culture accent comes right out.
Oh, I'm the exact same.
And then when I come up here, I find myself dampening it a little bit. Yeah. So I can kind of see but she does it so well. Like it's just so subtle. It's you don't even notice it.
I loved that as a kid, like hearing her like just swing in and out of the accent, like just depending on who she was talking to or where she was. It was so.
And when
good.
they fight, so one of my most favorite parts of the film is the tension between her and Josh Lucas's character Jake. You can tell that they have like known each other since they were like babies. Yeah, and I found like they're fighting so real. There's so much romantic tension, so many unsaid things. And then when she starts fighting with him, she really goes back into that southern accent. Yeah. And I just love that.
I love Josh Lucas.
Oh
like,
my gosh,
why isn't that man? Do you know what I mean? He pops up every now and again, and I'm like, TikTok. I'm upset. Like, he's really good in Ford versus Ferrari, I think. And I started Palm Royale. I don't know if you're watching that.
No.
He came up in that. I was like that meme of Leonardo DiCaprio like pointing to the TV. I was like, there you are.
And he's in Yellowstone. He plays Kevin Costner's younger self.
Okay. Will I ever watch that, Édaein? I'm really not sure. I love you a lot. I don't know. I don't. And Orla Conlon started telling me as well, and I don't know. But maybe, never say never.
I love
Is it good?
It is. It's good. Okay. It is good. Bit of a guilty pleasure, but no, it's good. Kevin Costner, like I love him, and then Josh Lucas is just perfect because I know him so much as Josh
like
Perry.
Young Costner,
yeah, and then that southern charm, and he comes up on TikTok now a lot as well. But he's unreal in this role. He is so fab. He is my dream man. I wish he was real. I know. Look, he got really drunk at the wedding, and like whatever. I wouldn't really care. To be honest, now looking back, I'm like, Melanie made a big deal out of Notting Girl. I was like, the boy was like 17. He got a bit drunk. Okay, you were pregnant. Like, you had a perfect life. I would have taken that. Someone knocked me up in the back of a van with a good-looking fella from the south. I wouldn't be fleeing.
Sure, what's there for you in New York?
Yeah, it's all here. Nothing. All your family's at home.
Truly. This is such a good cast. Like Patrick Dempsey as well as, again, he's kind of solidifying himself here as rom-com man. Maid of Honor, another one that I would like to do for Flop Culture at some point. So if anyone wants to do that, get in touch. Who wins then for you? Is it Lovely Mayor's Son or Country Boy Sweetheart? I think I know the answer, but
yeah, it's Country Boy, because I know what they're trying to kind of portray Patrick Dempsey's character as in the film, like really swoon-worthy. I don't get that vibe. I cringed at him a lot in this film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so on my earlier watches, I definitely didn't like him as much. On a more recent rewatch, I am kind of like, I feel like they could have done more to villainize him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he is just a bit like, I don't know, he's just rich. And is that his biggest crime? I mean, eat the rich and all that jazz. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's not really nasty to her. He does really love her. He does have that issue of, he comes down and realises, oh, she's been flat out lying to him, which, I mean, Melanie, like, what the fuck? You know, whatever. That's her own issue. But then he's like, that's grand. We'll get married. He changes the whole wedding plans to accommodate her. It's his mum who's the villain. You know what I mean?
Yes. And he is... That's probably a smart move by the writers too, because it is easy in romantic comedies to villainize the other person.
Yeah. And
to make them out to be the person you're not rooting for.
Yeah.
But like, he's very placid. Like, you can't really say anything bad about him.
Because even when she does, spoiler, but like, this is the whole point of the podcast, when she like decides to go back to Jake and sack him off, he's like, oh, this is what it feels. Oh, grand. Okay, this is what it feels like. And he's like, absolutely fine about it. And the mom is having an absolute melter. It's the mom having a breakdown. But again, he's like, it's not even that he throws his toys out of the pram at that point. So I'm like, oh, okay, interesting.
But clearly, he has never been rejected from anything in his life.
No.
Because he's like, this is what that feels like. So I'd say because of the privilege he grew up in, no one's ever said no to him.
Yeah.
He's always got what he wanted.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe they should have maybe made him a little bit more thick maybe when that happened. Also, I would have liked to have learned a little bit more about his father's backstory, because there is a point where him and the mom are talking at one point and she was like, sometimes, you know, you're like your dad.
You're just like your daddy, yeah.
And you often, she says something like, a hot piece of ass. So obviously, what I'm picking up from that is his father was involved in politics as well, and is one of those dodgy politicians who went off and rode some young one and brought shame on the family. But they never really touch on that.
Yeah.
And then the mother, she's so good.
She's the female cast is what makes this film, because even Jean Smart as well as Jake's mom is just
chef's kiss.
Oh,
she's perfect.
Perfect character, perfect performance, brilliant. But yeah, the mayor is just like,
and you like, I remember as a child being so physically angry at her. Like, I wanted to hit her. Like, I know many kids were like, I wanted to hit her too.
Melanie Linsky is in this as well, like, completely forgot. As the friend who, like, Melanie's old friend, and like, Melanie has the baby now, and that's that great line where Melanie's like, you have a baby in a bar.
Darling! My God, I didn't realise.
Yeah.
When I watched this last night to rewatch it for this podcast, I was like, I recognise you. She looks very different. She looks different.
Yeah.
But she's so good. Like, she's such a good character actor. So, like, I just totally believed that she's, like, from the South.
She's so good.
But she's so... This is, like, with those characters, the way Melanie interacts with them, that's when I really, like, dislike her. Because I'm like, God, girl, like, you know, like, these people did grow up with you. They were your friends. And, like, even the way, like, she's so dismissive of Laura Lynn when she comes in and talks about her top, you know, and she's in that red, like, off-the-shoulder top.
Slave. Sorry, Reese should have won the Oscar for this and the Bob alone. The capital B-A-W-B, Bob.
Yeah.
Bob.
She was bobbing it.
Bob bit and off-the-shoulder.
Fam, she's like, Burke Dust picked it up. And Laura Lynn's like, what? She's like, Jacqueline, do you know Jacqueline Smith? And it's so good, but...
Laura Lynn's like, I could literally get that in Shaw's.
Yeah.
I could get it in Shaw's tomorrow. Or
Mikey Guinness. Definitely Guinness has like a knockoff of that. But she has the baby, and Melanie's so dismissive of, like, you have a baby in a bar.
Like,
and she's...
Yeah.
Maybe it's an Irish thing that I'm like, oh, sure, like, we were all in pub. Were you making such a deal? Yeah. We were all in pubs as children.
Literally raised in pubs.
There's a lot of crossovers here between the two countries. But she's so dismissive to her. And in that bar scene, it's where she outs Bobby Ray. She makes a lot of comments to a lot of people. She gets horrifically
because she's
drunk on
hammered,
martinis.
and because obviously Jake at this point
hammered.
is still refusing to sign the papers.
Yeah.
She's kind of spiraling. She's running out of time because obviously the fella she's engaged to is like, where the hell are you? And
Yeah.
trying to plan the wedding. Meanwhile, the mayor is like actively trying to track her down because she knows like something isn't right.
Yeah.
And
And
she's
as
also
well-
very conscious of like where, like her own social standing and like whether Melanie's going to bring them into disrepute because of politics and reputation and stuff like that.
And there's probably a part of her as well that is maybe hyper aware of what those people and those people around her, the people she grew up with, what they actually think of her. Because I know myself, like when you move away from like a hometown, if you're from a small place and you move away to like a city or, you know, you go away for a while, do a few bits, come back. Like there is that, I hate saying the word notions, but people are kind of looking at you a bit like, are you going to come back now?
Yeah.
With an accent change person, like, and maybe that was kind of in her head too. And then with the drinking, and she's just deflecting maybe a lot of her own feelings. And then like coming home, obviously, and you can see quite early on in the film when she comes home, and I suppose she hadn't been home in so long, which is mad. She hasn't been home in 7 years, which I found crazy. Crazy. But obviously coming home after that time, you can see her kind of settling into home life again and being like, wow, like, you know, sigh of relief. And it is kind of that thing like, never forget where you came from. So I wonder, is that kind of in her head too?
Yeah.
That, and I think like Reese Witherspoon plays that so well. You can see it in her face like that.
Yeah. Especially
She's
in the scene
confused.
with like her mom and the on-screen parents and stuff, where it's like obviously because you haven't been home and there's that like struggle of her Melanie being like, well, you wanted me to leave and like go on and make something of myself, and I did, and that kind of push and that emotional heft is very good.
And I don't really understand the mother at times, though, her mom in this, because yeah, she says, I want you to get out, but then at the same time, it's like, why haven't you been home? There's that kind of, did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like, because of the whole,
Contradictory, like not happy either way. Yeah.
yeah, she's like not happy. Yeah, it's like they've that type of relationship where it's like, you know, she could do whatever and the mother will literally take no notice, you know? And then obviously as well, because there's, for people who haven't watched it, Jake obviously a bit of a disaster when they were younger because he was a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? And then has been trying to make something of himself over the last 7 years and is now a successful artiste in a way with his he's a glass business. Glass blower, has like this huge like shed thing where he sells all his glass, and like it's like you can sit out in the deck and like he has a plane,
A seaplane.
a seaplane. Like the man is doing things, and I'm like, why is the mother so flippant about him?
Yeah.
When clearly he is doing so well. So I found that, I suppose that's quite interesting. And then the whole thing with the pageants, that kind of briefly comes in. You know, I entered every pageant in the state, and I don't know a lot about those southern states, but it does kind of remind me maybe of what a lot of those mother-daughter relationships are like down there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We learned then as well that Jake followed her to New York and the whole, like, followed her in New York in an attempt to win her back, but was intimidated by the city and her success, which just gives me this idea of, like, Josh Lucas turning up and being like, I don't know how to work the subway, oh, fuck, what the fuck, like, just, and then being like, get me the fuck home. No. But that's obviously what wins Melanie back over, being like, okay, we've always been in love with each other.
Yeah. And
Perfect.
he's like, just, like, yeah, imagine him. First place he goes, Times Square.
Yeah.
Like, totally.
Sensory overload, just starts bawling, crying.
People shouting at him like rats everywhere. Like, the man is shook.
Shook to bits.
And I love that he went after her, and then that he has been trying for the last 7 years to be a better person, and then sending her back the papers the entire time. Well, I understand, very frustrating for her because the girl is like, I want to divorce your ass.
Yeah,
but
would you not have just texted her?
But I suppose it's 2002. Did
They had phones in 2002, did they not? They had email at that point, no?
This is where, with romantic comedy, sometimes with the plot holes, I'm like, God, 7 years, surely.
Well, it is.
She would have been.
Yeah. It's the normal
been
people
back.
of it all, where it's like, if you just spoke to each other, there wouldn't be a movie, you know what I mean? It'd be 5 minutes.
And like, you're not on different planets. Like, you're literally, there's a plane. Like, there's a thing called planes, and you can get them to and fro. But I just, it's, so two of my biggest obsessions, well, not they're two of my biggest obsessions in life, but I am fascinated by childhood sweethearts and southern states of America.
Okay.
For some reason, they're like my two things. So
It's
in
a
this
really
film,
interesting
but
subsection
really
of-
subsection
yeah.
that I'm just totally upset with, because I think in my own life, personally, I would have loved to have had a childhood sweetheart, but I didn't because I was fugly.
Okay.
I was really fugly and no boys in the store like me. So yeah, that dream has flown away. But I feel like people are talking about like childhood sweethearts a lot at the minute in media, because Katie Piper was on Loose Women the other morning, which I like to watch when I'm doing some work sometimes.
Okay.
And
Babe, you don't have to justify yourself. It's not on flop culture. You watch Loose
Sammy,
Women whenever you want.
do my little bit of writing, watching Loose Women. And she was talking about how she doesn't really understand how people can be childhood sweethearts, because you change so much as a person. And there was like a big discussion about a thing, because there was someone else in the panel who was with someone since they were 16, and she was like, I would hate to be with someone that, I've known since I was like 15, 16. And I was like, well, I have a lot of friends who are actually married now, who have been together with their significant others since they were like 14, 15. So I'm just very fascinated by that whole idea that you can love someone for your entire life. And even as you change, and even as she goes to New York and becomes like this big mega fashion designer, and he,
Blows glass.
after being a heavy drinker as a teenager and a football star. I just find that whole thing fascinating.
But then I suppose does that kind of solidify Katie's point in that I think Melanie thought she changed, but like she hadn't.
Yeah.
And I think there was a thing of, because we learn at the end of the movie, like she's still very successful as a fashion designer, even when she does choose Jake and move back to Alabama. Like, did she think that she had to go to New York to have it all? It's very like pre-pandemic way of thinking, where it's like, I have to be in Dublin, I have to be in the city, and then the pandemic happened, it was like, back to Clare with me or something, where I can work online, and I can get with the fella that I brought to my Debs, There are so many Irish parallels in this film.
Because that was my whole thinking when I went home during the pandemic. Like, I went home.
You're like, who's fugly now, bitches?
I was living in Dublin. I was like, oh yeah, Dublin's where I'm going to have to go for my job. And then pandemic happened, moved out to the sticks in Kerry. Yeah. Was going out with a fella. I knew of him since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
That relationship's now ended, for anyone who wants to know. Oh. And I just, it's crazy. When I was watching it back, I was like, wow, yeah, a lot of parallels, a lot of, obviously we're not like crazy Trump supporters in Ireland, but that whole country thing, it is a thing when you're like from a small place and then you move to a city, and it is like, make something of yourself and you want to be a different person, and that narrative is huge. But I know myself from like coming up to Dublin, it's like, you can't shake home. Like, no matter what you do, like, it's such a formative part of you, and it's such a big part of your being. Like, it mightn't be in your personality anymore, and your thoughts and feelings and your desires and everything can be totally different, but home is home. And it has developed you into the person you are, and it is really hard to shake that. And you can see that in the film. That she really, and then like the people around her, like, it is that looking at her being like, she has notions, after doing so well from her. Like, no one has, when she comes back, no one's like, oh, congratulations on everything you've done. Success, they just remember her as the crazy child who blew up the bank. Yeah.
Blew up the bank, tipped cows. Yeah.
Just a crazy gal.
Yeah, just a crazy
girl. Wish I knew her.
Just a crazy girl. Sure, they were also planning a trip to Ireland as well, herself and Patrick Dempsey. Do you know what I mean? And also, this is a fun fact that I didn't know, the glass featured as Deep South glass is actually hand-blown glass made by Simon Pearce, a Vermont company named after Simon Pearce, who emigrated to the United States from Waterford.
Lads, there's so many... Americans really fetishize Ireland anyway, but it is just so funny, like, when Patrick Dempsey's character is just randomly like, oh, we're thinking winter in Ireland.
Winter in Ireland, like,
just
of all the
just
times,
to have the
Patrick.
wedding. Why have the wedding in the middle, the dark depth? And like, where were they going to have it? I was thinking about that last night. I was like, are they going to do like Victorian David Beckham thing? Like, is that what's going to happen?
Luxorstown?
Maybe, yeah. Probably a dare now, though. If it was modern day, it would be a dare.
Yeah.
And then obviously his family have some sort of Irish connection.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
What did you make of his proposal to her in Tiffany's? Romantic? Because I have written down such an unromantic proposal, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And also, did they need that many staff in the shop? No. There's 45 people working in the shop at that one point, and it's like 2:00 in the morning.
Fun fact as well, that was the first film that was allowed to actually film in Tiffany's since Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Ah.
Which is very interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, shite proposal. I wouldn't like it.
Like...
And then bring me down these dark corridors. I would be like, I'm about to get assaulted.
It's very showy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just... But it's very his character. That's so his character.
Which again, I suppose that's why how they're trying to make him out as the villain. His only crime is being rich once again, where it's just like the only thing to him is like money. And like, it's not that I believe he wants to like buy her or anything. But if you compare it then to Jake's happy with his seaplane and his glass, you know what I mean? And his kind of dog that's on its last legs, respectfully.
Yeah, and has known her, like every version of her as, let's say, Melanie Smoother, whereas Patrick Dempsey's character only knows this Melanie Carmichael that she has made up.
Yeah.
And is basically, not 100%, but is fictitious in a way.
Well, essentially, like, yeah.
Like, as well, yeah, they get engaged, right? Now, look, lads, I might be old-fashioned, but if I didn't know or ever meet or talk to my fiance's parents, I'd be out the door, red flag.
Yeah.
Like, that, again... Maybe that's Americans. Is that what American people do?
I think so.
They're also not together that long. They're only
8 months.
8 months. Crazy stuff, lads. I'll calm it like.
To which he says, he's like, I know it hasn't been that long. Because initially she's like, are you sure? Because if you're not sure, whatever. And he's like, no, like I only usually ask the questions that I know the answer to. Yeah. That I already know the answer to. So. And again, goes back to that thing of like, he's not used to hearing no ever.
No. And her friends... which I love her two best friends, the model and the designer.
Yeah.
Love them. But again, she obviously liked them too. Were they not all thick at her? Like, I can imagine if I'd lied to people up here as like a totally different person. I'm not actually from Derry.
Okay, then in some ways, is Sweet Home Alabama just inventing Anna in some ways? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is she just actually Anna Delvey?
Yes, very good point. Like, it's 2002,
you know what I mean? Because I'd be
very much so.
Not being funny, if I've built a relationship with someone, even take the Patrick Dempsey of it all out of it, I've made friends with this girly fellow fashion designer. You know, I'm helping her out. We're helping each other out. We're getting all this kudos, whatever. And you're a big fat fucking liar. And you were too ashamed to tell me because of it. Like, what does that make you think of me? That you think I'd judge you?
And she would have had to raise funds as well. So she was obviously lying to a lot of people.
Yeah.
We should look into this. I'd say there's a crime that has been committed.
I think we hate Melanie girls. I think Melanie is the villain.
She should have been arrested the minute she punched the mayor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of slayed, to be honest.
Total slay, but like none of the mayor's people were there to like, they're obviously around her, but no one was diffusing the situation.
Truly, like where would never happen in this day and age.
One of the best parts of this film, and it's very underrated, is I would advise anyone, if you've never watched it, watch it the first time and watch it for the story. But if you're watching a second time, please just watch the extras.
Okay.
The extras in this film are so bad.
Okay.
Because I've watched it so many times now and I know exactly the way the story is going to go, my eyes will just flit to the extras who have I'm not an actress, but I would do a better job than half these extras. They're so bad. The ones at the wedding, like when everything's happening, they're just like, and then like when they're running out of like when it starts pissing rain, they're all like Sims characters. Like that's the only way I can describe it. Like every single extra is not doing their job on this film. So just side note if anyone wants to have a laugh while also enjoying the film, but just batch it.
For your second watch.
But the story's too good and the pretense of it is too good for me to say, you know, I just ignore that, like I don't care.
I do think it's that opening scene as well, though, with you. Young Melanie and young Jake, played by Dakota Johnson and a young boy whose name I don't know, but good for him. I'll put it in here after. I cannot believe I said Dakota Johnson. That's actually the funniest thing alive. I obviously meant Dakota Fanning plays young Melanie in Sweet Home Alabama, and the young actor that plays young Jake is Thomas Curtis. Apologies. And they like the whole thing of like it's lashing rain and lightning never strikes twice, and like that's catnip for any woman of a formative age, I feel.
It's so cute, and it's
so
like
I can kiss you whenever I want.
Just like and then they tied in lovely at the end of the film with that specific line, and it's just so cute. And it's just like that they loved each other since they were 10. And then at one point, when they are fighting, they go through, there's a lot of like hijinks and whatnot, romantic comedy vibes, when she's trying to get him to sign the papers. And there's the part where she takes all his money out of his checking account.
Perfect.
Does a job in the house. Really lovely job.
Yeah.
She got a new fridge and everything and bought some
Stunning.
light beer.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely fab. But they're obviously fighting and it kind of diffuses a little bit, and he turns around and he's like, you know, who finds their soulmate at 10 years old? Where's the fun in that? And I'm like, that just kills me. Like, it kills me. It is, it's just chef's kiss in terms of a romantic comedy. And I love the trope, and just the whole thing is divine. And the setting, like if it was set anywhere else, it wouldn't have worked. I think it is that Alabama thing, because I think that's how people see it. Now, I was trying to look up like kind of think pieces to see has anyone written anything good on this. They have not. But there was a random blog, and it was this person saying that they like didn't root for like the main characters. And I was like, for the main couple, I was like, okay, you obviously had a very loveless childhood, because I don't know how you couldn't not root for them. But I think like one of the criticisms was kind of that the way it does portray the South.
Oh, 100%.
Like it is quite, you know, it's like people come over here being like, there's leprechauns. Like it's that kind of thing.
But it's also like, there are very few black characters, and when they are, very it's little. Melanie's friend from New York.
Yes.
Like like Alabama is extremely whitewashed. When we do see other black characters, they are like help in the Carmichael house, which is, you know, like her dad's doing Confederate Army reenactments. Like it
would make you it is a little bit uncomfortable viewing.
But like not like this film would never be made today.
No.
And like and I would never want it to be remade. We'll talk about the sequel in a second, that they're like talking about the sequel should never be made. Like it is a product of its time, and I think if you can take it so surface level, rom-com, you know, the childhood sweethearts trope, the girl from a small town trope, the, you know, enemies to lovers kind of thing. If you take it as just that and like kind of leave everything else, then it's fine. That's not to say it's without its criticisms, but like this should not be remade. I don't think it should be praised for anything else other than the core love story between the characters. Yeah,
no, 100%. And it's mad in a way, like it's over 20 years how, let's say, America has changed, how people's views of America have changed. Like the whole Trump thing coming in, like it is the most, those bits when you watch it back as an adult, you are kind of like, Jesus.
But like it goes
but
back.
then I suppose it is in a way as well. It is a reality for some people.
But that's
down
exactly
there.
what I was about to say. In some ways, it is like it is real.
Yeah.
It is. Regretfully, there are people who have lots of shitty views and do take part in Confederate shit. You know what I mean? Like it's. I don't think it's necessarily romanticizing it or glamorizing it. I do think it was just Melanie's reality. But as I said, should not be remade.
No.
Product of its time.
Don't touch it.
No.
Just leave it. Yeah, it's a snapshot of a period. Yeah. And leave it at that.
Yeah.
Do not ruin. Don't do like a Lion King 2, not like. Actually, no, Lion King 2 was good.
Lion King 2 slaps, so take that back.
No, the live remake of The Lion King. Shocking.
I watched that over Christmas and I didn't think it was as bad as people were going on about it. Yeah.
Watched it too. Shocking.
I didn't. I thought it was going to be worse.
I just didn't. I'm a diehard Lion King fan. And I just, no.
Okay.
I can't even think about it.
Yeah. That's
it just ruins the whole.
Yeah.
And for this remake, what, like, did they give a hint on, like, storyline or, like, what?
Okay, so we should say there's, like, a mid-credits scene for Sweet Home Alabama that shows that Jake and Melanie have a baby daughter. She's thriving as a designer. Jake opens a Deep South Glass franchise in New York. And Andrew, the ex-fiance, is engaged to a girl named Erin Vanderbilt, his assistant.
Yes.
And he's happy out. Good for him. So he did get a happy ending. Like, there's been chat about a sequel, I think, for ages. Reese was asked about it in 2022, Reese Witherspoon, and she said, I hope so. I think that would be a great idea. And then obviously someone asked if she'd star in it, and she said, maybe, I don't know, that sounds fun. Do you guys want me to do that? And like, it was on a chat show. So sorry, I need to give context to that. It was on a chat show, so everyone's like, woo!
Asking the people.
Yeah, and she goes, okay, I'll make some calls. And then previously in 2016, she said, I love Sweet Home Alabama. We are not making a sequel that I know of, but if Disney wants to call me, I would happily make a Sweet Home Alabama 2. I kind of feel like she absolutely wants nothing to do with the sequel, but like will never say that, obviously, because like Reese Nice's Pie, whatever. Andy Tennant, who directed the film, had actually developed a sequel concept where Reese's character and Melanie Linsky's character take their kids on a college tour. Reese's daughter Ava went to school with my son, so I would see Reese on occasion. When the movie got to like 13 or 14 years later, I started thinking where they would all be. Where are those 4 characters now? Melanie, Jake, Andrew and Melanie Linsky's character Laura Lynn. My kids were going through college, so it got me thinking about a new generation of kids going to school and young love and what that would do to parents when they see their kids being real grown-ups. If the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, what is Melanie's daughter like? And then goes on to essentially say that like he got the script as far as Reese's lawyer, but then couldn't get it to Reese. So I'm like, oh, is Reese just not texting you back, babe? I don't know if you should be admitting that out loud. He said, even Reese's lawyer loved the treatment, but that's as close as I got. But like that concept... Respectfully, Andy Tennant, I don't want it.
That's shite.
That has nothing to do with the original conceit of the show. You know what I mean?
There doesn't need to be a sequel to anything, to everything.
No.
So, like with this film, I don't mean this in a bad way. Like, I absolutely love the characters, but I really don't care what happens to them after the final credits. And I mean this because in my head, I have locked them down. They're all very happy. Like, they're in New York, raised their child there. They'll probably have another, maybe 1 or 2 kids. And then I would say that they summer in Alabama.
Yeah.
And they have a great time and it's all lovely and they're in love forever. And the rest of the characters, they're all fine. Bobby Ray is now maybe in New York too. He has highlights at the end of that, when they in that post-credit
Bobby
scene.
Ray is the real winner. Melanie is the villain and Bobby Ray is the hero.
Bobby Ray is the real winner here. And I've locked them away and that's it. I do not need to know what happens to those characters.
Because what else? Like, we've had the main conflict. The whole main conflict is they have wanted to be back together for a year, whether they knew it or not, and they couldn't because of this unspeakable obstacle. They're back together now.
That's
and what?
And
nothing else happens.
And like, it wouldn't be as good, say, if their daughter had a childhood sweetheart in New York. No one really cares. The setting just wouldn't be... I just wouldn't enjoy that setting.
Yeah, I do think as problematic as the setting is, I think the setting, because it's so specific...
Yes.
Is what makes it. Because I think even if they'd made it like vague, kind of south, maybe not as detailed, I don't think it would. I personally don't think it would work as well.
So most of it was actually filmed in Georgia, not in Alabama itself. So I don't know, is that what Alabama, because it does look beautiful down there. Like, there are parts there that are stunning, like where he lives on that lake.
Oh,
incredible.
Divine.
Beautiful. And where he has his new showroom for all his glass. Stunning. Huge. You can see that in Ireland somewhere, like, gorge. But yeah, and then another really good point, I was thinking back, kind of the timing of when it was made, say when the parents wouldn't fly to New York. And I was like, why wouldn't they just fly to New York or whatever? But that was made post 9/11.
Yeah.
Like, literally so close. It was the first film that was allowed to be filmed in New York after 9/11.
Yeah.
So if you take all that into context, so that's maybe why they weren't flying. I really like to look into these things, but maybe that's why they weren't flying. You know, at that time you wouldn't have, like, my parents were certainly afraid of going on planes at that time. Yeah. So those poor people in Alabama, they probably didn't want to go either.
They were staying at home.
But it is, as you say, it's just that Snapchat, it's that snapshot of just that period of time where we were all, everyone was very clueless. There was no real, like, internet, like, wasn't. Can you remember 2002?
No. Thank God.
Neither can I. I don't even think we had dial-up in my house. So, like, internet wasn't a thing. Nobody knew anything. They didn't know anything better. You know, you leave it at that. And close the book. Job done. Film over.
We're going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back after this. I want to go back to Andy Tennant, the director, because I saw that name and I was like, he looks familiar. This is King of Romcoms, right? And also... everything's connected in Flap Culture Land. He was an extra in Grease 2, which we've covered on Flap Culture. Wow. There you go. Andy also directed Fool's Gold, Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey. Never seen, but would like to do Flap Culture because apparently it's dog shit. Hitch.
Oh,
and
wow.
Ever After, A Cinderella Story.
Ever After a Cinderella Story, who's in that one?
Selena Gomez.
Oh, the one
I'm
with
90%
Selena.
sure, yeah. Again, also supposedly dog shit. But
It
like,
is.
what a run of, because I think chronologically it goes Sweet Home Alabama, Hitch, Fool's Gold. That's untouchable in terms of a trifecta of shitty movies. You know what I mean? Shitty rom-coms. Hitch is okay, actually. Sorry, that's not fair. He also directed the adaptation of that book, The Secret.
Oh, that's terrible.
With
Have
Katie
you seen
Holmes
that?
in it. I will never be watching that, girls. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh,
I will
boys,
tell you that right now.
that is dog shit, sorry.
I want to put some reviews to you, if you wouldn't mind, because this did very well at the box office. It cost $30 million to make, but made $180.6 million. The critics, very kind of mixed on it. I think it is 36, maybe 38 on Rotten Tomatoes. Reese Witherspoon is charming enough, but the road to Alabama is well travelled. That's the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes. The Miami Herald called it a romantic comedy so rote, dull and predictable. Ugh. What do you have to say to them?
I stick my middle fingers up to them. And still to stick it up their asses. Yeah, I can see. I read Roger Engelbert. Is that his name?
Roger Ebert, I think. Roger Engelbert.
I
Yeah,
know.
stick on a few more
He
syllables
sounds
there.
like I'm pretty sure Roger Engelbert has like produced like musicals, so maybe that's where I'm getting it mixed up.
Maybe.
But I had read a review he had done of the film, and he was had a lot of praise for Reese Witherspoon because she sparkles.
She's
in this
consistently
film.
praised in every review. Yeah.
Sparkles in this film. But he said that it was a trope that was kind of done again and again. But I don't particularly agree with that. I haven't seen that kind of trope. Every romantic comedy is predictable, right? You're like,
that's why we like them. That's why
we
our
like
brains
them.
respond well to them. Yeah.
The couple will always get together at the end. Like, that's the way it goes. But that particular trope that they're doing is quite interesting. It's like this woman who's been married before, goes to New York, like makes a new name for herself. Like, I haven't seen that done. I haven't seen another film that's like gone down that kind of laneway. You know what I mean? So I don't really. I think when it comes to romantic comedies and reviews, I don't know, should they maybe get away without getting reviews? Because really, like, people, you aren't going to change. You might get a sparkler every once in a while. Like when Harry Met Sally, 500 Days of Summer, which technically isn't like a romantic comedy, but these films that come out maybe every few years and they kind of put the trope in its head and everyone's like, oh my God, romantic comedies are amazing. They're the best thing ever when you get a good one. It's really, really good. But the general ones that people are watching, they're being made to make money for people to sit at home, enjoy them. I think like reviews, they mean nothing. Like some of my favourite films probably have some of the worst reviews of all time. Like, I'm not watching them. If I want to watch an Oscar-winning film, I will do that. And I will do that in my own time. But if I just want to sit down, scream, kick my feet and giggle a little bit, I watch romantic comedies. And I don't care what any of these reviewers say.
So fair. I do want to read a couple of Letterboxd reviews because they were just very funny. It's Fanula J on Letterboxd. If you want to follow, you'll know what's coming up on Flop Culture if you follow me there. This review is from someone called maybe I'm redneck phobic, but who would leave millionaire Patrick Dempsey from New York at the altar? Not me. I really enjoyed this from Beth. Bit disappointed they didn't get struck by lightning at the end because I'm a sucker for a circular narrative. Son gave it 3 stars, and the review was one of my favourite lines from Patrick Dempsey's Matthew. You married your cousin?
Yeah.
Perfect. 2.5 stars from Kyle, who said Reese Witherspoon is the best thing to come out of the South since the gender neutral term y'all changed my mind. Oh my God.
The cousins thing is funny because, again, another parallel with kind of Ireland. Sometimes when you come from the country, like, people have made comments like that to me before.
How do you
We're all
mean?
related.
Oh yeah.
Like, people say that all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we love it so much, because we are like, 2 country gals, and we see, obviously not the redneck side of things, but we see like some,
Yeah.
I can identify with some bits of it.
Yeah. Someone just said McDreamy or McTrumpy.
I don't think Jake Perry is a Republican.
Okay, I think we are going to have to agree to disagree there, I think. Do you know what? I'd say he doesn't vote. I'd say that man has never seen the inside of a polling booth.
He's definitely not voting this year.
I wouldn't say so, no.
No.
He's not a big fan of either candidate.
Do you think that Melanie is a Democrat? Yeah.
Yeah.
Her parents 100% Trump.
I do like to think Melanie has changed, even though she's a bit of a wagon and literally, but I think politically she's like...
Politically, she's New York.
She knows where her bread is buttered, yeah.
Bobby Ray. I would say Bobby Ray is Republican. I think Bobby Ray is Republican.
Okay.
I think, he's gay, but he is a Republican.
Okay.
I think he still agrees with... Because he is quite right
conservative,
conservative. But yeah.
Okay. Robbie gave it 2 stars and said putting the poo in Reese Witherspoon, which is just so childish, but I love it. Lena gave it 2.5 stars and said this is like the complete opposite of Girl Boss, which made me laugh. And then a lot of other people, you've like a 5-star review calling it, this masterpiece haunts me. And then someone else gave it 1 star and goes, yo, these people are weird. Oh, it's so good.
I love people on the internet.
Yeah, same. Okay. I think we've talked more than enough about this, and I think you've given a good pitch. But for anyone who's maybe still not convinced, why should people give Sweet Home Alabama another shot, and why should it not be relegated as a flop?
Okay, why you should watch it? Number 1, there's a few reasons. Because I can't really nail it down because I am that obsessed with it. I've definitely watched it. I'd say, God, I definitely watch it 2 or 3 times a year. Like, it's just a lot. And I probably don't have a life, and like that's totally fine. But I would say number 1 in it, Reese Witherspoon. She's amazing in this. Yeah. She sparkles, made for the role.
Yeah.
Number 2, Josh Lucas. He's so hot, and they are so good together. Their chemistry is unreal. You believe that they have known each other since they were children. There's so much angst. It's amazing. I would say that just for the trope itself, if you're into romantic comedies or you have an inclination towards them, it's very sweet. It does deal with some, as we mentioned earlier, like they talk about miscarriage and homosexuality. They don't really delve into that. It's not that type of film. It's very surface level. But again, it's not all like, fluffy. And I would say, why else would you watch it? I just think if you want a film that it's just an easy watch. It makes you feel warm, fuzzy inside. It's just so cliche. But yeah, if you just want a really light watch, something you don't have to think too much about, ignore the whole, Confederacy, all that thing. Block it out of your mind. Watch it for the love story. It's one of my favourite love stories, I would say, I have seen on screen. So yeah, that's why.
There you go. That's a sell if I ever heard one. Édaein, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find more from you should they want to?
So you can follow me on Instagram, Edaein O'Connell. So I'm just going to spell my name for everyone here because it's my mother ruined my life.
She loves vowels, doesn't she?
She loves vowels. This is going to be so confusing. So it's Edaein O'Connell. And you can also follow me on TikTok, but I am slightly afraid of TikTok, but I do try sporadically post there.
You're great on TikTok with the outfits.
Yeah, the outfits, but I'm scared. Like, people scare me on TikTok. When I see a video doing well, I get a panic attack because some of the comments are just so... Like, people don't hold back there.
No.
Which characters out of Sweet Home Alabama do you think is a serial TikTok commenter?
Oh, I don't know if any of them are on TikTok.
I
think Melanie's on TikTok.
I think maybe Bobby
Jake doesn't have a phone.
Yeah.
Bobby Ray's a lurker. Bobby Ray's a burner.
Bobby Ray is Larlin.
Yeah.
Larlin's on Tat Life.
Oh my God. And with
do you know who's on Tat Life? The girl that works in the bank.
Oh yeah.
She's one. Oh yeah.
She's
100%. Yeah. So
weirdo behavior. Weirdos. Édaein, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture.
Thanks, Manula.
Thank you so much to Édaein for joining me. I will leave all of her links below. Finally, top of the flops.
You're a flop.
I mean, lots of choice for top of the flops. This week, all the people who believe we're getting a second season of Normal People, you're deluded, you're deranged. You are wrong. You are just fundamentally wrong. That thing that Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar-Jones are teasing on social media, they're going to be in the Variety Actors on Actors series. It's season 20 coming up, I think, and They've said it's announced. By the time I'm recording this, it'll be out and you'll all be wrong. And you will all look, I'm going to be honest, silly. You also don't want to find out what happens with Marianne O'Connell. Do you think they stay together? Guys, I don't know. That's another conversation for another day. But the other thing I wanted to declare top the flops is Love Island insisting on making All Stars a thing. Now, I will say, not surprising, it's been announced that it is coming back for a second season. Love Island All Stars 2025, South Africa, past Islanders coming back, another shot at love, another chance at money, another excuse to be famous for 6 weeks and get another old poly contract. Guys, I don't know. I just don't, I think it's frustrating because they will do anything but change the franchise at its core. And I get from their perspective, it's like, why would we change anything? People tune in, we still get huge audiences. We're slaying. We are absolutely slaying the house down boots. People are eating it up. Gobble, gobble, gobble. I think All Stars had the best viewing figure since maybe 2021. We actually did an episode of it on the Patreon with Orla Condon, who hosts My Bottom Paper, if you want to go back and listen to that. And we get into after the end of the first season of All Stars. And we talk about it in the future of the franchise and stuff like that. And I have the correct viewing figures there. But, I mean, I can't see, obviously the latest season of Love Island is coming imminently. And the promo is very, very hard. And look, it's hard to get kind of excited and riled up about about this when obviously I don't need to talk about the state of the world at the minute, as we've talked about for the last few weeks. But even then, I'm kind of looking at the people they're announcing, and it's funny because in some ways, there's always a demand that the issue is the casting, we need to fix the casting. And it seems like this year they have gone for people who don't have massive influencer audiences in the tens or hundreds of thousands. A couple of these people would have, from what I've checked, have relatively small audiences, we'll say in the thousands. And even at that, now there's still, you have semi-pro footballers mixed in, and you do have your 30k Insta girlies mixed in as well still. But even them going for quote unquote nobodies, they're still going for people who look, the casts are cut and paste of each other from years previous. You have, obviously there is someone in the cast who has, I think it's called Erb's palsy. And I think, yes, they have taken strides in trying to be more representative with disabilities. But then if it's one person per season, I'm not really sure that's good enough. And that's not actually what true representation means. They've renovated the villa. Okay. And what? They changed the host. Again, I really like Maya Jama. I think she's a better fit for the show. But I feel all these changes are kind of smoke and mirrors to actually distract from the fact that nothing is changing. There are no, the stakes have never been lower with regards to this show. Even as the main, I'm talking even with the main series now. Then you go to All Stars and while I do think they changed things that did work, the fact that there were no games and stuff like that, I think it was good that they didn't kind of arse around with stuff like that. But at the same time, it makes for very long episodes where they're just kind of sitting around and you're trying to believe that they don't all know each other or haven't interacted or haven't conspired on the outside to be we should get together, we should plan it this way, blah, blah, blah. I also felt the pacing of season 1 was just totally off. It felt it felt too chaotic in the sense that there were no long-term couples at any point to really root for. It was very, very messy. We're also getting to a point as well where the same names keep coming up of people they want. We want Maura, we want Ovi. I can't speak for Ovi. Maura is in a relationship, okay? Maura, and even if Maura wasn't in a relationship, I don't know if she'd do this show because she's past this show. Which leaves the question, who are they casting? It's people you don't remember. It's people who, and again, I like the idea of they didn't get a chance on this season, let's ask them back. You have a load of Casa Amor randomers. Is it enough to keep me watching, though? Is it enough to get me to watch from episode 1? No, especially when they, did have good names for the first season, and it still wasn't great. I don't know. I'm really, really intrigued to see the viewing figures for this normal season, this original season that's coming next week, and to see how it all compares, because I just don't think it's going to be. And if the viewing figures are low, I'm like, is this going to be the wake-up call for ITV? Again, probably not, shockingly. I just think they're going to keep going and keep trotting people out in bikinis because people will watch. But something has to change. Like, bring back the split or steal thing. Make it more money. Have it that they can win portions of money throughout the show. And I know there's an argument then that, like, that's maybe fundamentally Love Island games. Like, I don't care. Original Love Island was the OG. You can revert it. You know what I mean? Annoying. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. I can't wait for Love is Blind UK. That will fill my reality show void. And whenever Selling Sunset comes back. I need mindless television like that right now. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. A big thank you to you, the listener. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review wherever you're listening. It helps people find the show. You can get even more content on Patreon, at least 3 bonus episodes a month. It's patreon.com/flapculture. Shout out to some recent patrons. Hello to Aoife, hello to Heather, and hello to Ellen. Happy to have you. Very, very glad to have you. As a reminder, this podcast is available to listen to on YouTube, and some of the episodes are available to watch. Just look up Fionnuala J and you will find them all there. We are on social media, as I mentioned already. It's @flopculture_pod. And you can get in touch at any time. It's helloflopculture@gmail.com. Do you want to hear anything particular? Do you think you'd make a really good guest? Let me know. I'd be delighted to hear from you. That is it from me. This episode has been edited by the wonderful Adam Shanahan, as per usual. I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.